Welcome, Transy friends. On behalf of your Transylvania Alumni Board, I'm Catherine Nunn Lawless, class of 1998, and serve as next year's president-elect of the Transylvania Alumni Board. We're here this afternoon to participate in a question and answer session with our current interim president, Dr. John Williams, and president designee, Dr. Brian Lewis. I encourage you to ask questions on the Facebook feed, which we will be receiving here promptly, or you may email questions to alumni@transy.edu. We also have a number of questions that have been posed before the session, and so just know that any questions that you email in, that we will definitely follow up with you offline to provide you the answers. So without further ado, I am proud to introduce you to Interim President Dr. John Williams, Transylvania class of 1974. Dr. Williams is no stranger to the Transylvania community, as he and his wife Lucy, also an alumni, received the Morrison Medallion, a high honor that recognizes alumni who have made a significant impact on our community. But before serving as president this year, Dr. Williams also served on the Board of Trustees. This year, John and Lucy have worked tirelessly to continue business as usual in these extraordinary times and furthering their impact on our alma mater. And it is with great excitement that I also introduce to you our president designee, Dr. Brian Lewis. Dr. Lewis will begin his work as the 27th president of Transylvania on July 1. He comes to us from Catawba College, in Salisbury, North Carolina, where he has served as president there since 2012. His 20-year experience in higher education, dedication to students' personal and intellectual development, and commitment to academic excellence were key reasons to his selection. We welcome Dr. Lewis and his wife Laura to Lexington and look forward to meeting their children, Josh, who is in law school at Wake, and Anna Louise, who is a sophomore at Davidson. So thank you both for your time, and we appreciate the opportunity for our community to get to know you a little bit better. So
thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, so the first question can go to Dr. Williams.
Thank you.
So what, in all of your experience at Transylvania University, you were entering into this year as interim president, what have you found most surprising over your tenure this year?
Well, Catherine, it's certainly been a real honor and privilege to serve this year. And as I've told the story many times, serving on the Board of Trustees, I had a good perspective of the overall depth and breadth of what Transylvania does. But when you are in the president's role, it's like you go under the tent and now you live, breathe, think, sleep Transylvania each and every day. The fundamentals are very, very sound. I think I've seen opportunities for us to grow and expand. There are a number of significant issues in the higher education community in general, such as the cost of education, the student debt, the relevancy of curriculum. And while Transylvania has many of those elements, I think well down the road to align to a much more contemporary fashion. My discussion with Brian, our incoming president, is very exciting along that line because he has some very, very innovative ideas that I hope we can discuss today as well.
That sounds great. Thank you. I do appreciate your perspective for sure. So Dr. Lewis, then turning to you, I would love to know what you are looking forward to. If I could put a superlative on this, what are you looking forward to most in your upcoming year, your first year at Transylvania, and then maybe even forecast into the next 5 years?
Well, thank you, Catherine. It is exciting to be coming in. It's a little different scenario than I was envisaging even just a few weeks ago, given the pandemic and how that is shifting so much in higher education these days, including at Transylvania. And my hat is really off to Dr. Williams for his thoughtful and caring leadership in making sure the university's been able to make this particular set of transitions in recent weeks. What I'm looking forward to really is just getting to know all the people at Transylvania. I mean, one can study the data and be aware of the reputation and the history, but to start to really sit down with the people and throw around ideas and see what they think are going to be the ways that we can be most innovative, that we can capture not just addressing the challenges that COVID-19 and the other headwinds facing higher education are bringing to us, but also the opportunities. Because I think there really are some opportunities that Transylvania is superbly positioned to seize and to offer, in many ways, a traditional education, but also an education that is really on the cutting edge to prepare students for what we're coming to call the conceptual age. And I think really involving the entire Transy community in those discussions and seeing what ideas people have. That's what I'm looking forward to in the first year and really in the years beyond.
Absolutely. I'm a student of innovation and education, so I'm looking forward to that. So Dr. Williams, back to you. You know, we're here at Alumni Weekend, and you have such a rich history with our university. I would love to know what your favorite memory is of your time at Transy. It can also include memories with Lucy. You can answer that in two parts, but really interested to hear what you are most fond of.
Well, certainly. I think the thing that is foremost in my mind is the rich fellowship that we all have enjoyed so much. With their different affinity groups, whether it's an athletic team. In my case, it was with the choir. It was involved with the science club. I was also in a fraternity, and those are very, very fond memories in terms of those rich interactions. And you develop lifelong friendships that exist to this day. And for example, my roommate that I met in September of 1970, we're very dear friends. His name is Dan Von Koshenbar, lives in Seattle. Very dear friends to this very day. And he came from Cleveland. I came from Indiana, from Connersville, Indiana, and we just hit it off and have been lifelong friends since that time. Another great memory, of course, as you mentioned, Lucy, love of my life, and we enjoyed so much of the campus, and we're just there today, as a matter of fact, reminiscing and walking through Gratz Park and enjoying the wonderful spring colors and foliage, the flowers, as well as the architecture. And just the setting of Transylvania and its campus in Lexington is really quite a remembrance.
That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. She's so amazing. You definitely got a great token from Transylvania.
Oh, I tell you.
And your lovely Lucy, I love her.
She's great.
So Dr. Lewis, I'm going to come back to you and ask you, you know, so much has changed, especially in the past couple of months, but from a higher level, it seems as though so much has changed even in the past decade. And I know that you visited with Transylvania 10 years ago. And here you are currently also planning on moving to Transylvania and Lexington. And so I was wondering if you could share with us what you see as the biggest differences, maybe within the campus or Lexington, higher education. Could be a loaded question. What are the, you know, you could talk about strengths of the differences in the past 10 years or challenges. And then the second part of the question is, how will that affect your leadership decisions and your goals for the university?
Well, Catherine, I think the biggest changes that I noticed were clearly on the campus in terms of facilities. You know, Beck Center was a relatively new facility when I first set foot on the campus, and it still is a remarkable facility. You know, the new residence halls, the new campus center that is coming online, those are tremendously exciting and attractive facilities to really send the message to students that they can have a very engaged campus experience, even within the setting of all the remarkable things that Lexington has to offer. So those are the things that were the immediate impact of you know, visiting 10 years apart. But you're right, higher education itself has changed a lot. I think perspectives of higher education have shifted somewhat. And as John and I were talking about this morning in the session we did together, I think there really is that sense of a disconnect between what families are hearing or perceiving that they need to have higher education prepare them for as being a preparation for that very first job or career after college. But I think what we're hearing from employers is very much they're looking for versatile, diverse people who are going to be able to adapt continuously. And so I think that brings into play the lasting, enduring strength of liberal arts education, because that's the kind of thing that is going to prepare students with the kind of literacies that they are going to need, not just you know, the traditional 3 R's, if you will, but also very much data literacy and human literacy. If COVID-19 is teaching us anything, it is that we need to find more and more ways to connect in very empathetic ways with each other in whatever field of service or endeavor we're engaged with. And so I think the opportunity for a place like Transy is really to demonstrate that and to demonstrate the effectiveness of that kind of education and to capitalize on the very personal nature that is so integral to the Transy experience, because no two educations are ever going to be identical ever again, if they ever were. But more and more today's students are really expecting and clamoring for a personalized, customized education. And I think Transylvania is particularly well suited to do that because of the talent of the faculty and what we're learning about the possibilities of digital learning and other platforms.
Absolutely agree. I graduated with a business administration degree, but I've worked for companies like Apple and Amazon. I currently work for Discovery. They have an education division. And the one thing that I know is that Transylvania blew up for me my conceptions of what education should be, and it made me flexible. So the adaptability and the ability to see from a high level how things fit, multiple things in the world can fit together, is essential to work in companies, especially STEAM related companies, but companies in today's world, tomorrow's world. It's all about adaptability and being able to communicate and work together. So I agree with you 100%. Transylvania absolutely prepared me for a remote global world. So I agree with you. I cannot wait. This is going to be great. You're going to be great. Okay, Dr. Williams, in a related question, you have played an important part on the Board of Trustees. And so I would like to know your perspective and what you see as, from the board, what you would like to see changed, or what changes you would like to see in the next 5 years.
Well, I think that we've already been talking a bit about the pedagogical approach, the innovation that I think would really serve us well, serve our graduates well in our ever-changing world. There are, the the fundamental ability of the board and the leadership of the institution to work effectively is such a paramount aspect of a healthy relationship. And I know Brian, it's been a tremendous honor for me to get to know him these past several weeks and intently, and before that, over the last several months. And Brian's going to be a great fit. I mean, he asks good questions. He's sensitive. He's a good listener. And he will continue, I think, to develop that relationship, which will really serve our institution so very, very well. Other aspects that the board, I think, needs to embrace are there's some matters relative to faculty. We touched on the curriculum a bit. Our physical plant is in very strong shape, as was referenced earlier. We do have some deferred maintenance. We need to get after a rehab of Mitchell Fine Arts building, for example, like we've done with Hop Humanities, which is now Carpenter Building. Mm-hmm. But the communication and I think the working relationship, which is already so solid and moving forward, I think will pay great dividends for Transylvania going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I have a question for both of you, because you both talked about innovation and change, and that's definitely something I'm personally interested in. But innovation, the word, can mean very different things to different people. So Dr. Lewis, I would like for you to share with us how you see innovation with regards to higher education, and then Dr. Williams, if you would follow up answering the same question.
Well, Catherine, I think we're going to see, whether we want to or not, a need for a greater blending of remote and in-person education, whether that's because of social distancing restrictions or needing to be more flexible to make sure that student athletes can compete to the level that they wish to, that students can engage in internships and co-ops and experiential opportunities without potentially ever missing a class again because of the possibilities of online platforms and blending those things. So I think as we become more comfortable with the different platforms and the tools that they offer us, I think we're going to see faculty continue to innovate in how they deliver different aspects of their courses and utilize that to really make the course experience deeper, richer than it already is. And I think that's very valuable. I think we're also going to see potentially a greater blending of disciplines, whether it's formally in the sense of adjusting majors or minors or concentrations, or whether it's putting together course packages that collectively address different angles of complex problems to bring multidisciplinary expertise to bear. Because, as we're seeing with something like the COVID-19 pandemic, it's not being addressed in any kind of silo. It has to be a full-on societal approach to how we figure these things out. John is demonstrating that every day, and how he's bringing the campus leadership and expertise together to figure out the different options for Transy in addressing these issues. So I think the more that we can model those experiences for students are going to be some of the ways that we're going to find innovating the educational program going forward.
I appreciate it.
Catherine, as I look at innovation, one of the things that has been very much in my mind, or on my mind, as a health professions educator, serving as the dean of 3 different dental schools for the past 21 years, is the notion, which has really brought to the forefront now with the change in remote education with the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is the shift to competency-based education as opposed to seat time. If we start looking at the efficient use of resources and the ability of the learner to demonstrate the ability to be competent in, and we just fill in the blank, whatever subject matter that would represent, why do we need to spend additional time in remedial time with that particular individual? Several colleges around the country have done that. Western Governors, for example, has been focusing on this. And I think we're going to see this take on even more significance going forward with students at K-12 level learning online. We've had college students in a similar situation. And I think that will help address some of the issues, particularly around cost and value for education. Why don't we think about significantly having a 3-year as opposed to a 4-year baccalaureate program, for example? So those are just some thoughts in terms of innovation going forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So we have a new academic dean, and I would love for you, I guess, Dr. Williams, if you want to start first, share with us some details about Sarah Rebecca Thomas. I love her background: computer science, MIT, Stanford, PhD. She sounds amazing. So can you share with us some details?
Certainly. Well, let me, if you might indulge me for just a moment, I'll tell a personal story on myself. My mother's first name was Sarah. And so when I interviewed, we did the interviews this time around using Zoom. And so I kept referencing, she goes by Becky, she goes by Rebecca. So I kept referring to her to Sarah throughout the interview. And she was very polite and very gracious. When she sent me a note following up, I said, oh my goodness, it was one of those points of, the light bulb went off in my mind. So, but she was very, very gracious about that. So she's got a good sense of humor and flexible from that standpoint. No, I too am very excited about Becky's coming to Transylvania. She brings a wealth of experience and background and excellent academic pedigree, very unusual. Spending time in the smaller private institutions. And so she has a lot of experience, and I think will bring much of that energy to Transylvania, and can really be a great partner along with our new president to take on the opportunities of creating a much more innovative and progressive Transylvania of the 21st century.
Sounds great. Dr. Lewis, have you met?
Yes, I had the good fortune. It's only been virtually, but I've had several in-depth conversations with Dr. Thomas, and I echo everything that Dr. Williams said. I am so excited about what she is going to bring to Transylvania and to the leadership team. Give you a little bit of a sense. This is the third academic vice president search that I've been involved with, either as a search committee member or as George W. Bush would call it, the decider in the process. And by far, it was the strongest pool of finalists that I have encountered. I think it is fair to say that Transy would not have gone wrong asking any of the finalists to have served in this role with us. It was that kind of caliber. And so I think that speaks volumes for Transy about the kind of caliber of candidates that this opportunity attracted. And then I was so impressed with Becky, not only with the background that John's described, but the insights and the style that she's going to bring to the role. I think her experiences at Earlham and Bard will serve her very, very well in terms of understanding the liberal arts education and the ways to shift and adapt it to 21st century needs. And when I did reference calls with her colleagues from different institutions, no exaggeration here, it was the strongest set of reference calls that I've ever been engaged with. And you sort of expect references to say good things about their friends and colleagues, but the specificity and the characterization that they were able to paint about what Becky will bring to us makes me just tremendously excited. So from every angle, I couldn't be more pleased and more proud. And as you said, her educational background, when I told my daughter that, yeah, we're hiring an academic dean who has degrees from MIT and Stanford, and she just said, Yeah, that'll do. Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? We are so lucky. I'm just so
Catherine,
excited. Yes.
Catherine, let me add something I think that is very significant as we move forward with Transylvania come July 1st of this year. Typically, when you seek a new president, and you also have the need for a dean, you would get the president in place, and then you would set about a search for an academic leader. In this case, we ran parallel searches with the thought that Brian would make the final decision, which he has. Was active in that role, but it was his decision to make as he builds his team. But I think we're very, very fortunate to have a president starting July 1st and a new academic dean starting July 1st. So we've saved essentially a year in terms of academic work and planning to move the institution forward. And so, Brian, I really compliment your good work and effort in securing decadal leadership.
Well, thank you, John. But I'm really, my hat is off to Transy, because as I was exploring opportunities and going through the search process with Transy, the fact that they had already determined that that is how they were going to go about the academic vice president and dean position search spoke volumes to me about the nature of the people, the integrity, and the foresight that was already present on the campus. And that was one of the cues to me that Transylvania was absolutely the kind of place I would want to be.
That's so great. I'm just thrilled. As a student of change leadership, you're absolutely correct. The fact that we are fortunate enough that both leaders are starting together, and that there's no time to waste. And that it seems as though both of them are being accepted so well by faculty and our community already. It's just, the future's so bright, and I'm really, really pleased. Thank you so much. I do have a couple of final questions. I want to know, Dr. Williams, what are you going to do this next year? I can't imagine. You and Lucy, what are your plans?
Well, we are in the process of sorting through several options. I still retain my tenured full professor position at Indiana University School of Dentistry. I have the remaining time of my administrative leave, which I postponed this year to come to Transy and serve as the interim president. We also have a boat sitting south of Detroit in winter storage right now. And there's some question based upon the impact of COVID-19 and the public health status, how flexible we will be to continue some of our boat journey. So there's several things up in the air right now. And another aspect I've spoken with Brian about is possibly doing some work with Transy next year in certain specific areas. So happy to entertain a variety of things.
That's so fun.
Yeah, we're not going to let them get very far away, I promise.
That's great. We do have a question from a recent grad. I love it. What is your favorite TV show? Who wants to go first?
I'll take a stab at that one first. Though I've got a long list of favorite TV shows. Probably the one that I can keep going back to and watching over and over is Sherlock, the Benedict Cumberbatch, Martin Freeman, sort of modern day Sherlock Holmes. I just think it is so brilliantly crafted, eminently rewatchable, and hugely entertaining. So that's the first one that comes to mind, but there would be several on that list.
I like that. I do. I agree with you.
Well, I'm a bit more recluse when it comes to television, but I do enjoy the PBS NewsHour. But for more entertainment purposes, really been a fan of Downton Abbey.
Right. I can agree with that as well. Those are good. Those are good. Question for Dr. Lewis. aside from the pandemic, what are the challenges that you see in Transy's future?
I think the challenges that Transy is facing, aside from the pandemic, uh, are the same that many small tuition-driven institutions are facing, and that is convincing students and parents that the type of education that we have to offer and the style in which we offer it is really what is going to serve them best and what is going to be worth their investment of their time and their resources. And I'll tell you that my own daughter came to that realization herself. She had originally thought she wanted to be at a large school with all of the bells and whistles that entails, and she actually spent her freshman year at a much larger institution. And then she decided of her own accord to transfer, and that she wanted to be at a smaller place. It's a place that has a lot of similarities with Transylvania, because she realized that she was going to need that personal interaction with faculty. She wanted to have the opportunity to have a broad liberal arts education rather than be narrowly focused on just preparing for what she thought that first career might be. So I was really proud of her for coming to those conclusions herself and making the choice and taking the jump and transferring. And she has absolutely found it to be the right move for her. So I think the challenge for us is to have those conversations with prospective students and parents, and for alumni and Transylvania community members to be strong ambassadors for that message.
I appreciate that. Thank you. This question is for the both of you. We all learn from our mistakes. What is an honest or humorous mistake you've made, and how has it helped you?
John, I'll let you take that.
Okay,
I know.
all right, sure.
Oh, I was like,
Sure.
Dr. Williams, who wants to take this?
Well, my mistake from the standpoint of developing a part of my administrative style. Early on as an administrator and as a clinician, we're used to making decisions. You diagnose and you develop responses, and you want to move on very quickly. And I learned because of some push that I had with early faculty initiatives, that the faculty need to take their time. And it's not in perpetuity, but sometimes it can feel like it. So you just have to accept the fact that faculty need time, space to work through a new initiative that you might put before them. But I've learned to give them an endpoint. So let's say I think it ought to be a decision we can make in 2 weeks. The faculty might think it would be more like 2 or 3 months. So we'll establish a point of time in the future that will be longer than my 2 weeks, but not in perpetuity. But it would be, let's say, maybe 2 or 3 months. And I've found that I get a lot more done that way working with faculty. They just need time to process.
That's a good answer. Dr. Lewis?
I guess what I found early in my administrative career was the necessity for focus and making choices on what you're going to focus on. My colleagues were literally getting to the point of saying, please don't let Brian go off to another conference, because he will come back with a list of 30 things he wants to do, and we just can't do them all. So I've learned to marshal those ideas, to not let them escape, because sometimes something will be ripe 3 or 4 years from now. So it's good to hold on to ideas and resources, but that it is absolutely critical to pick those, whatever that small number is, 3, 4, 5 things that are going to be the focal points and that are going to be the drivers and are going to have the greatest impact, so that you're not spreading your attention, your people, and your resources too thin, and that you can have the greatest impact with those selective choices. And that makes what those choices are all the more critical.
So speaking of focus, we do have a question related to that. How do you see your presidency in the first 3 months on campus?
Given what these particular first 3 months are going to be, it's going to be a different answer than I would have given a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the same elements will pertain. It's going to be absorbing as much as I can about what Transy has in terms of people and expertise and resources to bring to bear to the particular challenges we have so that we can marshal those appropriately. It's going to be, in this particular circumstance, evaluating what the health restrictions are going to be that are going to be placed before us by local and state and other authorities, and figuring out how we can deliver the full Transy mission and the full Transy experience to the best of our ability within those constraints. And if there's anything that I am particularly grateful for in what I've seen at Transy, what I've experienced at Catawba in my last months here, has been the incredible creativity, resilience, and patience and understanding that everybody has understood that we are very much swimming in uncharted waters, and we are making the best decisions as quickly as we can based on the best information we have, but that things can shift very quickly, and that we've had to adapt to new ways of doing things at a speed and in a manner which we've never anticipated before. So it's really going to be pulling all of those things together, building on the good leadership and foundation that John has laid and is continuing to lay for us, and preparing Transylvania for the next academic year as best we can.
Thank you. So I do, to tie that in, we do have a question. If you're talking about changes and new beginnings and various things for the both of you, if you had the power to change one thing about higher education, what would it be and how would you implement it?
Brian, you want to go first?
Had the power to change one thing. I guess it would be to give prospective students and parents sort of X-ray vision that that they would look through or past some of the messaging or some of the things that they're perceiving about the types of education that are available to them, and to look past things like sticker price and say, okay, I'm making an investment in myself and in my future, and what's the best way to do that? And I need to inform myself as fully as possible about a place like Transylvania so that I know that I can actually get a remarkable education at a very reasonable price, and that it will make a life-changing difference for me. Because I think there are some students and families out there who, for various reasons, simply will sail past that opportunity and not explore it fully. Part of that rests on us to be out there aggressively and effectively telling the story. But I do wish that I could sort of turn that switch for some people and have them realize what a wonderful opportunity is here if they would only explore it.
Truly. Dr. Williams?
Well, my point really focuses on the cost and the attendant student debt issues that we see in society. That is a significant concern. We're going to see it exacerbated with this COVID-19 downturn, and we've already seen the huge jump in unemployment and the hardship that places on individuals. So I think that collectively we need to really get our arms around in higher education, and this is not just Transylvania. This is public education. Most of my experience has been in public higher education and health professions, where we are sending young dentists and physicians out of medical school or dental school at $250,000 to $400,000 in debt. Significant numbers that are hard to really comprehend. At the undergraduate level, the average indebtedness $25,000 to $30,000, and looking for that value. And I think that gets back to what Brian was talking about, is helping people see beyond just the short term, the 5 years out of school, but what is the benefit of having had the type of education that Transylvania offers to be good critical thinkers and problem solvers and communicators and adaptability, as we talked about earlier. So those are the things that that really cause me concern for the future.
I've been saving this question for our last question. And I really appreciate both of you for your honesty, candid responses, just allowing us to see the personal side of you, as well as see your vision for our university. I do have one final question, and it's addressed on behalf of all alumni of Transylvania University. What can we as alumni do to make an impact on our university today? And what can we do to impact the future of the university?
I'll take a stab at that one first and let John bat clean up, if that's all right. I think that alumni can be and usually are the most effective ambassadors for the university. And therefore, we need to ask you to be really out there telling the story of Transylvania, talking to prospective students and families. And I don't just mean, oh, you're a high school senior, where are you going to college? I mean, talking to them when they're in elementary school and middle school, planting the seeds early, because those seeds can really flower over time. But yes, as the conversations get closer to the mark in terms of active college search, you know, offering to bring a student to campus, putting a student in direct contact with a faculty member or the admissions office, volunteering to go to a college fair or a high school in your area to help tell the Transy story. There is no more significant gift that alumni can make than to bring us students, not only because obviously it helps populate the campus and helps us financially, but because you know firsthand what the Transy experience meant to you, how it changed your lives, and what greater gift to you could you give not only to the university but to a young person than to introduce them to Transy.
Agreed. Dr. Williams?
Yeah, I would have three items, and just building on Brian's notion of, I would put that in the domain of advocacy, advocating for Transylvania, identification of future students who we believe would be a good fit. I had a great role model in that regard, and that was my uncle, William P. Hardy, a physician in Eastern Tennessee, and he had a captive audience with his patients because he would just tell them, I think you need to go to Transylvania. And he, over the years, he brought a lot of students to Transy, and I'll never forget that. The second is working with our students once they're enrolled. We have a great 100 Doors mentoring program, adopting students, bringing them into your professional career line of work, or just befriending them to support them while they're in school. It's another strong aspect. And the third one is to financially support the institution through scholarships, through we have very few professorships on campus, for example. I know we raised a lot of money for a bricks and mortar project, but scholarships are another very, very integral component of where I think donors and alumni can play a significant difference from that standpoint. So those are my three in a nutshell.
Fantastic answers. I really do appreciate your time. I know everyone on the other end of the line I'm sure has enjoyed our time with you just as much as I have. And so I have to encourage everyone who's watching to heed the call and become a part of Transylvania University as an alumni. Anything that you can do or want to do, please do email alumni@transy.edu, and we can find a place for you to advocate on behalf of our college and bring in potential students and also help to give back. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, President Williams. Thank you, President Lewis. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much. Bye-bye.